just 6 short weeks ago, some were calling it a stroke of genius that would cement the Conservatives' hold on power in the UK. Performance on the campaign trail have gone a great way to dissolving the UK Prime Minister's 20-point lead. What's proved the most startling is what this campaign's been all about. This was supposed to be about giving the Conservatives a polls vary wildly, pinpointing the defining issue of this campaign is proving, well, just as hard as predicting voter intentions. There is still Brexit, of course, that's high on the minds, but after 10 years of stagnant wages and belt-tightening, the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has struck a chord in a different matter and one we'll be putting to our panel. But there is a common thread. It's about how to define Britain going forward, open or closed, great or little. And weighing on that conversation is a campaign weeks. How Britain sees itself and its multicultural model has been tested in a liberal democracy that's anathema to the world that extremists would like to see. So what will decide? Be that deciding factor today in the France 24 debate? We're looking at what the British want. And with us from London, he's a former chief of staff to David Cameron, Alex Dean of Public Relations.
Good to be with you.
Also in the UK capital, we'll be joined soon by the editor for the UK version of for joining us.
Hi, good evening.
And from Coventry, Warwick University professor Mike Finn, who I hope has brought his crystal ball. How are you? Prime Minister,
guys, I can hear a lot of noise.
the Prime Minister on the campaign trail Tuesday has been talking up security and talking up the Brexit concept. But let me begin with you. Alex Dean, what has defined this campaign, and what has defined the campaign, and what is the issue that matters most to people in Britain?
Well, you rightly said in your introduction to this that the election was called on the basis that it was going to be about Brexit and delivering a stronger majority for the government. The most important issue that's emerged in the campaign is the contrast between Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May. We live in an increasingly presidential time. Like it or not, the focus is more and more on individuals. Unlike you, where you have an elected president, we don't have that system. Government emerges from our elected legislative representatives. We have a system of cabinet government in theory, but actually we see increasingly a focus on our leaders in just the same way as in France or States. I think the most important thing in this election is do you want Theresa May to be Prime Minister or Jeremy Corbyn? That's the way the campaign has gone, and I think that's the thing that matters most.
Campaign trail.
Well, in my view, despite the fact that I can only concede, as you also said, in the snap election period, I think Theresa May has come through far more strongly than Jeremy Corbyn. Of course, I am a Conservative and I may be accused of bias, so it's better that I'm open about that fact. But nevertheless, I think that Jeremy Corbyn has struggled to explain away whose reign of terror in my country is well remembered, certainly by older voters. And more recently, he's really struggled to instill a sense of campaign discipline in his shadow cabinet. Diane Abbott, who is the Shadow Home Secretary, has been temporarily relieved of duties today on the eve of polls. If that's really the case, then of course I hope that she gets better, albeit I gather she's been seen campaigning and seems to be in perfectly good health. I suspect the real reason that she's been benched is that she's been campaigning incredibly badly and can't remember what her messages are, just like Emily Thornberry, another front bench who can't really be said to be a good campaigner. Equally, the majority of Labour Party members, parliamentary members, who've explicitly said that they have no confidence in Jeremy Corbyn's campaign.
Right,
He's really good on the stump, he's really good at rallies, but he's not quite so good at leading his party.
All right, this is a conversation we've been having ever since last year. Jeremy Corbyn, who's not Flavour of the Month with the leadership of the Labour Party, but seems popular with the base. Nina, do you agree with Alex Dean that at the end of the day is who makes a better leader?
I think just picking up on what Alex said, what's interesting is you can also make the argument that Jeremy Corbyn has had a better campaign because he's far exceeded expectations. Of course, when the Tories came into this election, they were leading by 20 place, and let's not forget that they've been wrong twice in the last 2 years when it came to last 2 years, general election 2015. Ultimately, we'll only know on Thursday where the blow is going to land. But because Theresa May was expected to just crush Corbyn, and that has one other thing that he's done quite successfully in this campaign is that he usually loses his temper. He gets quite touchy when he's questioned on difficult questions. But this campaign, he's managed to keep his cool. So I think that although the campaign, I think that Jeremy Corbyn perhaps has overseeded expectations, and that's certainly true also within his party, as Alex correctly pointed out. There are many members of the Labour Party who were waiting fall flat on his face and then they could step in. And now that doesn't seem to be the case. Well, ultimately, come Friday morning, we'll have a better sense. But I think what certainly is true is that Theresa May, when she came to this election, she seemed very, very strong. She was almost a blank slate because, of course, she hadn't been elected as Prime Minister, and because there have been a few wobbles in the campaign, I don't know if she will be seen as quite so strong and stable going forward.
All right. Lots of questions coming in on the hashtag F24debate. This will win in a big majority. What will be viewed as a bad result for the Tories? I'll put it to you, Mike Finn, seeing this latest YouGov poll, which gives this wide margin of possibilities when it comes to the number of seats that could be picked up. What would be a good majority? What would be a bad result?
Well, I think it depends whether you mean a bad result for the Conservatives or a bad result for Theresa May, and they're not quite the same thing. I think a good result for the Conservatives would simply be any kind of comfortable majority that they can work. Majority in the region of 30 would be enough for that. But is that a good result given where they started from? And moreover, for Theresa May, I think realistically, given the poll disparity at the start of this cycle, a majority of less than 50. So I think there's two different elements there. One is how much of a mandate do they really need to manage the Brexit process effectively, and then the other is how much of a mandate does Theresa May need to allay the criticisms of her leadership that have emerged during this campaign. And on that basis, the
presidential election, now granted, it was one single election as opposed to the more than 600 little elections that take place across the UK in a parliamentary poll. The pollsters turned out to get it. They got it pretty contradicting each other so much on the eve of the result.
Well, I think there's a number of reasons for that, but I think if you look at the way in which the polling data is constructed and construed and interpreted by the different polling, I mean, some polling firms use a panel, some polling firms are looking at data that isn't weighted particularly strongly in favour of a youth turnout model, some are going the other way. There's lots of different characteristics to the individual polling methodologies which can explain this to some degree. But I think most people would concur that models where youth turnout is assumed to be strong see Labour narrow the gap. Models where youth turnout, Jeremy Corbyn's party and Theresa